I'm just trying to give this studio their flowers because what they have done here as a lifelong artist has really inspired me to keep working. Like through all the BS that's going on today, something like this has the power to pull you out of creative despair, transform that energy, and think about some of the most brilliant works of art you can ever imagine. That's what Unicorn Overlord did for me. My name is Jabu, and I love to talk about the visuals in games. I'm a lifelong artist, and I would appreciate it if you can like and subscribe if you like this video or I made you smile. So the final thing that I'm going to talk about in my Unicorn Overlord series is actually something that I find the most incredible out of everything that I love about this game. And that is actually the cohesiveness of its visuals. What is the meaning of cohesiveness? The quality of performing a united whole. Unity. And in this case, it's Vanilleware's ability to unify everything through their visual choices. Cohesiveness is conquered here through and through. One thing that I like that goes along with this cohesiveness is actually the human elements that I constantly witnessed while playing said game. The human element in this game is very important because, as we know, as AI gets more advanced and corporations hate their dev teams more and more and more, we might witness the end of human input when it comes to creating our games. This is why I have to put this game on the best, highest pedestal I can possibly put it on, which is a video on this channel, and try my best to explain to you exactly how they pull this off. So I'm not gonna lie to you, as someone who has been a creative for as long as I can remember, I can honestly say that I think this is probably the best hand-drawn style I've seen implemented in a video game. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of games. Again, I like art styles that are in sharp contrast to the way I make my work. I have a very high esteem for styles that do this. It actually makes me question my own style and how I can better tweak that to express what I am trying to express. So as soon as this game starts, you see this beautiful intro. An intro spanning all the kingdoms, eventually leading to showing a lot of characters into our protagonist, Elaine. So out of everything that's going on when you start this game, one of the things that I absolutely love and I admire and I try never to ever skip is actually the unraveling of the Vanillaware logo in the very beginning with the two unicorns. To use your 2D art style in such a way that it actually looks semi 3D, I think that is fantastic. It takes a certain level of perspective to understand how angles should operate to be perceived correctly by us, the viewer. So I have to give props to that amazing execution. So my last video was about the brilliance of the art direction within the combat. When I was a young lad, illustrated books were everything. I don't even know if kids nowadays even look at illustrated books, but back then I used to look at illustrated things a lot. So the combat in Unicorn Overlord feels like the illustrations that I used to look at as a kid come to life. So from everything from attack to different poses, even to the reactions when characters get hit, look hand painted frame by frame to look that way and not just procedurally, which I really appreciate. I forgot to mention why it's so clear and easy to read during battles. And that thing is actually using details to direct our focus. It's a very simple thing. If you're trying to make a painting and you're trying to make something on that painting stand out, what you want the person to focus on has more detail than what you don't want them to focus on. So in Unicorn Overlord, this is done by the level of detail that is drawn onto each character model, in contrast to everything else. And I briefly touched on this in my last video, but the foreground, middle ground, and background also adhere to this rule. So you'll notice lines on characters are much sharper, much more detailed and more pronounced. There's a lot more detail on the individual character models than anything else around you. And that is 110% intentional. I, as well as many artists, utilize this tactic in all our work. Characters naturally pop on less detailed foregrounds and backgrounds. Like I'm even using it right now. Like my face should be clearer than what's behind me. And what that does, it creates the focal point for each and every frame. And this is why I'm Google Gaga over this game. You're never confused as to who's attacking, where the hit lands, who took damage and what they're doing. However, I forgot to mention a subtle technique that they're also using in their battles. In a matter of milliseconds, these developers transform our beautiful characters into silhouettes and slowly lower the transparency to focus on the character behind them. I think that's really cool. I mean, other games do this too. Like if you're playing some games and the camera rotate behind some furniture, the furniture is gonna dissolve and disappear. But it's just something so dope about seeing it happen on a 2D level and knowing what the intent behind the action actually is. So with this, all of it flows with all of this clear-cut cohesiveness. The backgrounds, even though they're not as detailed as the characters, they still hold a lot of personality. Each background is unified under the same beautiful art style, but are very distinct from one another. So distinct that you can tell which kingdom you're in any given fight. So the next thing that I actually really admire about the cohesiveness in this game is actually something I get giddy about: the world map. Come on, those of us who have been playing JRPGs over decades, we know just how charming a good world map can be. And in this game, it is absolutely alluringly beautiful. So it is my pleasure to talk about this world map yet again, because I already have a video about it. The world map literally feels like a hand-painted piece of tapestry. One thing that I think is really cool about this world map in particular that I actually didn't mention in my video is the fact that the characters that are on the world map are more detailed than the environments around them. And again, I think that's because the attention to detail when it comes to our eyes focusing. And it still reads very, very clear. And I think that's a very important point to drive home because it makes everything pop so well. I mean, it's really dope because the whole thing looks like a big ass illustration. Again, I am very biased because I was born with a brush in my hand, but I love it so much. Another thread that is very cohesive is actually the use of color, which blows my mind. I think color is one of those things that it takes experience to get right. Like you can read about color theory all you want to, but until you're actually experimenting with the pigmentation of one paint to the next to try to create a color to convey what you're trying to paint, until you actually are experimenting like that, like you're a mad scientist in a lab, I'm telling you, it's not gonna hit the same. It's not gonna hit the same. And it's cool because it's very, very subtle, right? The scene behind me, there are primarily two colors that are being utilized here to perfection. That is this beautiful yellow gold, followed by a very, very cool yet embracing blue. And I think that is important because it shows us the warmth of our sun. So without this yellow warming up the whole scene, which is actually reflected on the tiles below, be in contrast against this cool blue, it might not read as well. They could have picked any other color to go in this pathway, but they decided to go with the cool blue / purple, and it's magnificent. So typically in most scenes, you'll see a dominant color being escorted by a wonderful, beautiful secondary color. And the secondary color is simply propping up the majesticness of the hue that Vanillaware is trying to capture us with within their scenes. And I like this clear and distinct color choice of a dominating color in each and every background, because it makes it more memorable. But one color use that I absolutely admire is actually the use of that very same gold that's cascading over everything. It's really cool seeing the sunlight woven into every scene because it reminds me of what's taking place in the tragedy of the story. You're liberating your land. So comes with that a beacon of shining hope. Yeah, I know it sounds corny, but when I'm immersed in the story, it's working. And that's the point. Another color that I absolutely love, because it typically symbolizes our nurturing earth, is actually green. I said it in my world map video and I'll say it again. Elheim is my favorite place / kingdom in Unicorn Overlord, because the amount of foliage that's gleaming from these backgrounds is definitely one to behold. One to be holded. So this nurturing green is displayed all throughout Elheim. We have deep greens that lead up to cool blue greens. And what that does, it gives the illusion that there's a lot of variety amongst the foliage within the vicinity. I just love how the use of the colors perfectly portray the kingdoms that our characters reside in. So if you look at the kingdoms, each kingdom is represented by a predominant color. Cornea being blue, Darkenhold being brown or gold, kind of tan. Bastorius as white, mixed with a little blue. And Elheim, which is covered in luscious greens. There is another kingdom called the Zenorians. They pretty much suck ass. I mean, they do have cool armor designs, I will give them that, but they're represented by red and purple. Yeah, rightfully so. Vengeance, 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 vengeance. Looks like a rock group, but I digress. This game also has one last cohesive thread that I couldn't wait to get on here and talk about. And that is the thread of having your art style be absolutely coherent with your UI, your text, your buttons, your knobs, everything that displays any kind of chart or anything non-physical in the universe that you're creating, the stuff we interact with. So if we were living in the world of Unicorn Overlord, we, the players with the controller, become God. The UI is fantastic. And just like everything else in this game, the UI is hand-drawn. So when you're going through Unicorn Overlord and you're trying to liberate these towns, you will see this amazing billboard come out. And this billboard will have items that you are to give to the town to rejuvenate the civilization. And these billboards are very detailed and make it easy to understand what you're supposed to do when turning in these items. And what you're supposed to do is simply move a switch that is also chock full of crazy detail, a lever that says yes or no. And all we gotta do is just push one button to see this arrow animate and swing to the other side, and then finish animating. That level of detail is crazy. There's only one other game that I can think of that does shit like this. That is Persona 5. The UI in Persona 5, it's on that level, but in a different style, obviously. In Unicorn Overlord, things in the UI are animating and folding with such purpose. It makes it feel very, very good to interact with anything, pretty much. A fascinating thing about the UI is the fact that Vanillaware chose text that actually works with their art style. So the font that they use looks very nice on top of the hand-drawn UI elements that we get to look at. And one of the most memorable uses of this is actually when you go to a shop, these UI elements quickly animate into position. And that is seen throughout the rest of the game as well. Speaking of shops, shops in this game look amazing. So the cohesiveness, I feel like it's just seen through and through throughout this game. And you can probably even go through and pick out a lot of examples that I may have looked over. This is why it pays to have many eyes looking at the same thing. That's why you gotta play the game. Okay, so as we know, everything is not perfect, correct? So there is one thing that I did notice, and it's a small little nitpick when it comes to Unicorn Overlord, and that is simply the fact that you will see things duplicated. Okay, we know duplication is synonymous with video games at this point because many games duplicate many things before our very eyes in every single game that we play. You just have to notice it once and then you will notice it through the rest of the game. That's a very small nitpick that I have with the game. I understand that it took a lot of manpower and hours to actually craft this thing. So that's like a tiny little nitpick. Other than that, I would give the visuals in this game my highest regard. Man, I'm gonna miss playing Unicorn Overlord. But I gotta move on, man. They got a lot of other games that need crits. Yeah. For those of you who already forgot who I am, my name is Jabulani Ori. I am a lifelong artist who has been doing artwork with these hands for his entire life. If you'd like to see my work, you can head over to my website, jahbu.com, or you can simply follow me on Instagram under jahbu_art. I will be moving on to craziness, zaniness, like a dragon. Infinite wealth is coming on this channel, as well as Shinobi. One love, peace.